Jana Goranson.
Here.
Alec Gorinsky, not yet. Amy Haddad.
Yes.
Thank you. Karen Harris.
Here.
Ellen Hornady.
Here.
Mark Laughlin.
Here.
Sarah Peets.
Here.
Clark Roush.
Here.
Thank you. And Wally Silent, not yet. Thank you.
Can you get rid of that?
Got it. We are using, I'm too far away from the machine.
Oh,
There Okay, we need approval of the agenda. If anybody has anything they want to change or add or on it, otherwise, could I have a,
Sherry, we should note the one that you have in front of you, and it was included in the digital, but it changed since the time of the printing. We had the names of the folks who had to redo their oaths, so that's the one that's printed out in front of you is the most current one.
okay, the only change is the addition of council members that take the oath of office, so that is the only change, but do we have approval then?
approve.
Thank you, Sarah.
A second.
Second, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Vote, roll call vote,
Okay. Hofshire,
yes.
Cheek, Davis,
Yes.
Dudley,
Yes.
Dunning.
Yes.
Goranson.
Yes.
Haddad,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hornady,
Yes.
Laughlin,
Yes.
Peets,
Yes.
Roush.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is that the oral communications with our two very, very good partners, partnering organizations, the Nebraska Cultural Endowment and Nebraskans for the Arts. So let's start with Maggie with the Cultural Endowment.
Hello, this is my first time meeting with you all. I am so sorry I missed the last two meetings of the Arts Council. I was not able to attend and for various reasons, but I'm here now and it was a pleasure to be here. I think since there are a few new members, it might be helpful for me just to point you to the infographic up there on the screen. This talks a little bit in a more visual way of what the endowment is. The endowment's made up of two different funding streams. One is a private donor gift, and then there is an agreement with the Nebraska State Legislature that there be a match of up to $10 million between 2020 and 2030. So we have a $1 million a year match. So every time someone gives a donation privately, then it is matched publicly.
Give me 1 second. I need to share this with the folks online.
Sure.
Let's do that. I gotta go.
There we go. We good?
Yes.
Okay, and so those funds then are invested and the earnings from those funds then are distributed every year to both the Arts Council and Humanities Nebraska. So they're the only things that the endowment funds, and we don't do any grant giving ourselves. It is all done through our two amazing partner organizations and their incredible staff. And so that is what the endowment is. And you can see our mission there is to cultivate a legacy of stability, leadership, and advocacy for the arts and humanities in Nebraska. And I've been the executive director since March, so I haven't even got a year under my belt yet, but it certainly feels like I'm getting there. And if you want to move to the next slide, I think I gave you 3. It was a while ago, so I can't remember. So this year, this last year, I wanted to let everyone know what we actually distributed and what the fund is looking like for as we move into 2023. As of September 2022, we had $4,976,423 in gifts and pledges towards that $10 million campaign that we're currently in between 2020 and 2030. So we are ahead of the game. We still have 5 million, a little over 5 million left to raise. And that's my job. So I'll be continuing to work hard at that. And then what we distributed from our earnings in the fund in 2022 was $728,939 to the Arts Council, and Humanities Nebraska was distributed $432,602. There is a slight difference in those numbers because Humanities Nebraska is a nonprofit, so they are able to fundraise. So because of that, we have a slight difference in distribution, and the Arts Council does receive more of our distribution funding every year. I think there might be one more slide. Yeah. So just to let you know what I've been up to this year, I did make a tour of Western Nebraska in June. I stopped in quite a few places and went all the way out to Gering and made a couple of stops in Kearney and Norfolk and a lot of other places. So I had some wonderful receptions on my behalf just to introduce me to everybody in Nebraska, which was wonderful. We had our annual board meeting in Scottsbluff, Nebraska in October, so I got to go back out west, which was fantastic. And we also had many of Suzanne's retirement receptions, which I was very honored. I didn't mean that was not as well. Suzanne Leving.
She was a trooper.
I was thrilled to be at every single one of them and just celebrate Suzanne. We had a wonderful legacy luncheon at Assemblage in Lincoln in November. Just for those of you who don't know, we have legacy members who are people, donors, private donors that have committed to including the endowment in their wills. And so that is, we want to celebrate them every year and their commitment to the endowment by having a small luncheon and a little program. And so we did that. It was wonderful. And then my big news for next year is that it's the 25th anniversary of the endowment. And so we have decided to have our first ever big event for the endowment, which is going to be featuring the new Poet Laureate of the United States, Ada Limon. And it's going to be at the Holland Center in Omaha on May 18th. So save the date for that. We will be sending out our first save the date cards at the end of January, early February, so everyone knows when it's going to be, where it's going to be. There will be opportunities to sponsor the event, and there will be a patron party ahead of time, and it's going to be just a really great celebration. So hopefully everybody can attend. So that's what I'm working really hard on right now, along with everything else. So lovely to meet you all, and I think that's it for me. Yes. Oh, and Amy, yes, and I should mention this about Amy Haddad as well, who's also on your board. Amy is our honorary chair for that event. And she actually is, and her husband Steve, have very, very generously offered to pay for the honorarium and any of the rentals towards that the Holland Center is that we have to pay for the Holland Center. And so that incredible generosity just, can't be beat. But Amy's also going to be introducing Ada Limon because Ada happened to be her, when she was in grad school, Amy was in grad school for poetry, Ada was her advisor. And so they have a personal relationship. And so that there's a really nice overlapping connection between the Arts Council and Amy's also going to be the vice president of the endowment board next year. So lots of overlapping. And so thank you, Amy. That's it.
Okay. Thanks, Maggie. I might also mention that when Maggie was with us during the tours, or during the receptions that we had for Suzanne, that we always pointed out as she made a pitch for the fact that in the endowment, we set up a Suzanne Wise Arts Education Fund for anybody who wanted to honor her in that way. It's obviously ongoing arts education projects is something that Suzanne is really indebted to. And that adds in to anybody who has given to that fund, that's part of that match.
It is. So if you give $100 towards Suzanne's fund, then that's an extra $100.
Yeah.
Because it is part of the endowment. It's under the umbrella of the endowment.
And I think I can't remember what the fund figure is right now, but it's really grown nicely.
Yeah.
We've had some good donations.
And I apologize, I can't remember either, but if anyone's interested, please let me know. I've got plenty of information on how to do that.
Yeah, obviously. Okay, Petra, Nebraskans for the Arts.
Yes, oh, thank you, Mike. It's so good to be here with all of you and then to new members. So I'm going to give a quick report. We can just move on to the next slide. I'm going to give a little look back at our legislative activities from last year. So our big one was LB 1014, the shovel ready grant program. We were really pleased that finally that money went through and was dispersed to the organization that they had waited for a while, and it was 115 million in total for capital projects that had been delayed due to COVID-19. So 100 was from federal ARPA funds and 15 was from the general funds. And it just, as I said, had been a longer process for those organizations that applied, which was back in July of 2021. So it was really nice when that got wrapped up, and will be huge for our state. So we're excited. Most of those projects are in the cultural sector and then some in the sports sector as well. Then we had LB 927, and that one, I'm not going to go into too much, but it does provide some additional funds for the creative district program, which we love. In 23-24 specifically, it has some restrictions on who can benefit from that funding, but in the end, we always feel like the more money that goes into the program, the better, because in the end, it benefits everyone. So, so that was nice, and estimated to be between $4 to $5 million. So nothing to sniff at. And our final bill was LB 325, which will have a new number as we go into this new session in 2023. That's our arts therapy bill that we've been working on for many years. So you're probably very familiar with this or have heard about it. But kind of in a nutshell, this bill ensures that only people who are trained and certified as art therapists can call themselves art therapists. Currently in Nebraska, anyone. So if I wanted to call myself an art therapist, I could do that and advertise my services. No one would want that to happen. So this bill has no money attached to it, but it's basically kind of making sure that only if you have that certain training and certification can you call yourself an art therapist. So that's something that wasn't heard in this past session, and that was the second year that that bill had been. So basically it is no longer, it's been gone, and we have to start all over in 2023, but that's okay, because we have our awesome coalition, we have our senator who still wants to sponsor the bill, and all the kind of prep work that we did before will benefit us in the coming session. So I feel very optimistic that this is going to be the year. Last year was so busy with all the ARPA funds, so in a short session, so it got kind of pushed to that, didn't get heard, but we have good, I think we have really good momentum, and as I said, all the work we've been doing over the years will hopefully pay off in this coming session. I've got another slide. I'm going to try to be fast too. We got two, our Nebraska Arts Award winners just announced yesterday, Palmer Public Schools and St. Paul Public Schools, so very close geographically, but they were the ones that applied and were selected for this year, and excited to celebrate them in the spring, primarily with the trophy that you see in the photo, bless you, and legislative resolution and the other locations. We're very happy that we received a couple of grants in addition to the generous support that we enjoy from Nebraska Arts Council. We're so fortunate for. We also got grants from Peter Hewitt Foundation and the Cooper Foundation this year. And we have resurrected the Arts Education Dispatch in collaboration with Nebraska Arts Council. Looking at Anne here, because Anne kind of that's been a passion project for her. And we had an issue in October. We have one coming out this week, and then we'll have an April issue. And this was something that was going before the pandemic, and it's comes out 3 to 4 times a year, and it's primarily for arts educators and administrators in the arts, telling good news stories and things. So kind of really doing some of that advocacy work of why, spreading good news and wonderful things that happen in arts education. And it had been not happening during the pandemic because everyone was, educators were so stretched, but we've brought it back this year. So that's exciting. And finally, we have Nebraska, our Arts Advocacy Day coming up. Friday, February 17th, 2023. You're hearing it first, announce it publicly later.
In person?
It will be in person, yes.
Wow.
The 2 years of virtual, we're really excited to get back in person. Can't be at the Capitol because of renovation still, but that's okay. We'll be in one of our creative districts and that will be wonderful. And we're gonna have workshop sessions, opportunity for networking, a tour, a performance. And so, and then we'll follow that up with meetings with the senators via Zoom. So registrations will open in early January, so save the date. And that's all I have.
And I would thank you, and also for those who don't know, Nebraskans for the Arts is really, it is our, they can do lobbying, so to speak. We call it advocacy, but whereas an organization like NAC can provide information, they can't lobby. So this is the organization that goes in and does the lobbying for, in conjunction with the cultural endowment and all, and has representatives from across the state. And it's really a dynamic group. The last couple of years have been very busy, very active. Before that, we had a couple of years where kind of nothing was happening. And so it's a matter of keeping your people excited and going. But there's a lot of advocates across the state, and this is the organization that brings them together and gets things done. So cheers to you.
Memberships are only $25.
Yes.
Yes.
For the whole year.
You can add a one on that.
And a
too.
lot of information that comes out in their email news blast and so on.
If mine's expiring, like if I paid at this February, should I pay again come to February, or should I pay again like year calendar?
We actually do rolling memberships in 12 months. So if you pay in February, you'll get a letter from me in January saying, oh, time to pay up. And then it will be good for another 12 months because people do join kind of at different times. So we won't ever want to have that full 12 months.
Yeah, just one question, or actually two. On the creative districts, do we need the legislature to do funding more than, you talked about the $4 and $5 million new funding? Do we need something from them in the next 2 to 5 years? And if so, with Senator Flood kind of moving on, how's that working? And then my second question, and just executive summary, because we have a lot on the deal. Do you have 1 or 2 or 3 legislative priorities in this coming session?
So I'll kind of defer to NAC up too on the first one because the creative district is already funded at $1 million a year. And then this was extra that Senator Flood kind of wanted to push forward. So as far as I know, I think right now we don't have an ask out for any more funding because it's currently being funded at a good level. And the second one, really, the only bill that we're kind of really aware of at this point is our art therapy bill coming into the 2023 session. So we've had such big money items the past few years that I think we'll probably not have those like 100 million and those kinds of things, or even this coming session. So I think it's going to be hopefully the time to push our art therapy through.
Thank you.
So everyone can bring this up for AA, let's hope nobody sees and gets confused.
I think what's more critical is a staff position for creative districts because it's going so well and we just don't have the staff for it. So it is in our budget and it is something that we will be able to now present data about just how it's mushroomed and the amount of time. Several of us have been keeping, just like a lawyer, we've been keeping, hours on our time cards so that the senators can see just how much time we've been spending. Back to the issue of the funding, Senator Flood cut a deal with the League of Municipalities that all of the funds for CCCFF, which is
Civic Community Center Financing Fund.
are all there for creative districts. So if there's a window of a year that we have to market this program, get people up and running, getting them to think big about their projects and applying for this money. So right now the issues are really more getting into this window, because it's only a year that we have full access to this money. The turn back tax money is going to continue to build, and we're in good shape with that as well. So,
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you both. Moving on, approval of minutes. The minutes were in the packet. For those, it was the minutes from September 13th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So
Thank you, Zach. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Roll call vote?
Abshar,
Yes.
Cheek,
yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Dudley,
Yes.
Dunning,
yes.
Goranson,
Yes.
Gorinsky,
Yes.
Haddad,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hornady,
Yes.
Laughlin,
Yes.
Keats,
Yes.
and Roush.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, then we have two new board members to introduce. I'd like to introduce, I'll start with you, Crystal Dunning. Would you just take a couple, tell us a few facts about your background and why you're here?
Sure. So started in the arts very, very young, went all the way through grad school for voice performance. During that time, realized that the arts are not only important, but can be very hard to fund. And that the funding that is sometimes made available can be hard to come by, or individuals in the arts don't always know where to find those funds. So became really, really passionate about fundraising. Fast forward, started working at the Lincoln Community Playhouse. That led me to, for personal reasons, I had to move back home, but that led me to start working in fundraising at the university in my hometown in Lafayette, Louisiana. So I did their annual giving, fell even deeper in love with fundraising. Decided it was time to move back to Lincoln. It had really made a home for myself here. And then I now work remotely for a company based in New York, but it is a software company where we use software to help nonprofits raise different types of gifts, non-traditional gifts like QCD gifts, stock gifts, crypto gifts. They get a variety of different gifts. But that whole time have loved teaching voice and music, and particularly helping younger individuals understand the impact of the arts, and again, in particular music, but to just kind of help them develop their personalities, develop their own voice through the arts.
Great. Well, welcome. It's great to have you. Karen Harris.
I feel very underqualified for this. I'm a journalism major, actually. I have very little artistic talent, any kind. I think I fall into the category of a patron. And I mean, if I were going to pick a category that I'm the best at, it would be the visual arts as opposed to singing or dancing or I've been very involved at the Lead for a number of years. It's where I first got to know Sarah. We worked together for a number of years, and I'm still involved now on the advisory board. I'm on the Hickson Lead board. I'm on a lot of boards. I don't know what else I offer, but
Oh, that's wonderful. And we can't all be like Crystal and Zach and have the skills. We're not here because we have skills.
Saying
Weird.
I was thinking to myself about how when I was like 15 years old, my band teacher, or I went to a music competition, and one of the judges had said, like, you should seriously reconsider whether or not you want to do band in high school. So talking about talent, you might please.
Although I probably should mention that through all of this, My husband and I have 5 children and 20 grandchildren that are spread all over, sometimes the world. So we travel and we learn to appreciate all of their artistic talents. And most of them are quite talented. Skip the generation.
I'm gonna say one more thing before I forget, because that's a good segue to it. But guys, I brought, I went to Shakespeare's hometown a couple weeks ago and I brought little postcards from it for anybody who wants some. So I'm just gonna leave them here before I forget.
Stratford on Avon, huh?
Probably didn't bring enough, forget it.
Oh, yeah.
One goes right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I might go through like individual picture after picture on Facebook. I said, I'm gonna say,
I've got dirt from there.
oh, yeah.
Where we used to live, they were working in the garden
Uh-huh.
while we were visiting. And I reached, because they had a hole there, I reached down about a foot and figured that's about when he lived there. Spread it on the Shakespeare Festival.
Had as many people as Columbus, but the town's built like the Haymarket.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but yeah, so I brought one for you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, so the rest of us are appreciators and patrons and supporters. I mean, that's what it's all about. Okay, we now need to have both of you, Crystal and Karen, and then Michelle, Brenda, myself, and Mark, who are reappointees. We need to take this oath of office, and you all, Mike is going to put it up on the screen and or you have it in front of you. And we're going to try to all read it at the same time together, and putting in our own name, obviously, as we go. Everybody ready? Okay. I, Sherry
Brenda
Hawkeye,
Davis,
do solemnly swear
that I will support
the
the
Constitution of the
Constitution of the
United
United
States
States
and the
Constitution
Constitution of the State of Nebraska
Nebraska
against
against
all
all
enemies,
enemies, foreign and domestic, that I
that I
will
will bear true faith and allegiance to
allegiance to the
the
same.
I
I take this obligation
and
freely and without mental reservation or for purpose of evasion,
and that I
that
will
I will faithfully,
partially
perform the duties of
office of a council
council
member
member
according to the
to
law
law
and to the
to
best
the
of my
best of my
ability.
ability.
And I
And
do
I do further swear
I do
that I
not
do not advocate
nor
or am I a member of any
any political
party
or
or
organization
organization
that advocates the
advocates the
overthrow
overthrow
of the government of the
of the
United States or of this state by force or violence. And that during
that
such
during such time as I am in this position,
I will not
not advance
become
or
a member
become a
of
member
any
of any
political
political
party
party
or
or
organization
organization
that
that
advocates
advocates
the
the
overthrow
overthrow of the government
of the
of the
United
United
States
States
or of
or
this
this
state
state by force or violence.
So help me God. Okay, and then Mike, everybody will sign their own individual one and give it to you, is that correct?
Debbie, what do you do?
If they'll go ahead and just sign on where it says name, and then I'll take your form and I'll notarize it, and we'll make some copies, and I'll get you a copy back.
Does it matter what pen we use? Or-
It doesn't matter to any pen will work.
Would you like a red one? I mean, it doesn't matter. Oh, no, I mean,
Would you like this?
oh, no, I'm okay. Thank
And how are you doing the people who are at home?
I'm only doing the ones that are here and you can sign the form. So we'll have to do it to those who aren't here. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard that, but who's it, Brenda? That's not, Brenda, we'll get the form to you and we'll get your signature.
And Michelle.
And Michelle, thank you.
Okay. That was not quite as painful as what we did a couple years ago, but it still doesn't really work well. Okay, going on to financial report. I turn this all over to Alan.
Good afternoon. Sorry I couldn't be with you all in person today. My job is done. I will turn this over to Mike.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Yeah, we have the financials to approve, and then I have a couple of pieces of business to do with NAC DC that we'll get out of the way. But as for the financials, if you would please, and I will try to make this as brief as possible, turn to the allotment status report in your packet on page, tab 2, page 14. This again, as a reminder, is the report that we get from the accounting department here in the state, telling us what we have to spend and what we have spent to date. And I'll draw your attention to the column that says year-to-date expenditures, fourth from the left. That tells us exactly what we have spent in each of the 4 different programs that we have. The 323 was that one-time only program that funneled money to the Museum of Nebraska Art. And program 326 is our administrative expenses. 327 are our grants. And 329 is the program we use to draw down funds from the Cultural Preservation Endowment Fund. Okay, so you see it as of the end of October, we had completely spent all of program 323. And program 326, $297,464.17. And in 327, $1,072,013.78. And finally, in program 329, $38.50 and 82 cents. That information needs to match up with our books, which are on the next page, page 15. And as you'll see, looking at the boxes, they do to the penny, which is always a good sign. Now, we break these all out in the details on the next pages, which I don't have for display, but they're in your packet. And I will just let you know that today, everything is just as we would hope it would be in terms of expenditures, and that the majority of the money that will be spending will be in the second half of the year. But if there are any questions at all about any of the details, I will mention that as on program 329, as of the end of September, if you want to look at page was it 17, 18 in your packet, the program 329, the balance of the CPEF account as of the end of our end of September rather, and remember we have a 6-week delay on the report that we get on that, was $10,141,985.95. The corpus of the account was 12 million at that time, so you can see that due to the market weakness, we are quite a bit underwater at the present time. And I will give you an update on the CPEF status going into next year in just a moment. But that just gives you a picture as to where we are going into the next year. Any questions about the financials as presented? If not, we can entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
That was
Thank
Mark
you.
and-
Mark and Zach.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, roll call vote.
Hofstra,
Yes.
Cheek,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
thank you, Dudley,
Yes.
Dunning,
Yes.
Lawrenson,
Yes.
Rinsky. Added,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hornady,
Yes.
Laughlin,
Yes.
Dietz,
Yes.
and Roush.
Yes.
Thank you all. Okay. Next is exactly what I think about the CPEF report. And these details. As I mentioned, the Cultural Preservation Endowment Fund, if you remember, that's the money that the state sets aside. We match it with funds with our help from the Friends of the Nebraska Cultural Endowment. And anytime there are earnings over the corpus, we're allowed to draw them down. As I mentioned before, we're quite a bit underwater right now, so there are no drawdowns. This fall, as the market got a little bit more precarious, we spent some time talking with Brian Schneider, who's our advisor with DA Davidson, just as in terms of what we might expect going forward. The good people at the Cultural Endowment had similar discussions. Long story short, what we decided was that we would stretch out our CPEF dollars a little bit. What I mean by that is that as we draw those funds down, we put them into a stability fund for the next year. And what we've decided to do is spread them out over the next 2 years so that we have some funds to give to our BSG organizations for the next 2 years. What's reflected here then is FY 22, as of the end of October, you see the CPAP that we had set aside. That next line, then the CPAP earnings, the 209,586. In other words, we have $420,000 set aside for CPAP, from CPAP to spread out. We decided to do 50% this year, 50% next year. We'll augment it with some of the private funds that we've got in the NAC Development Corporation. And then the other thing that I want to point out is that the expenditures, you see that our commitment to BSG organizations this year was originally 70,000. We had some organizations that fell out, if you remember, that some that didn't get approved, and we'll leave it at that. Next year, we anticipate lowering that amount, and we've already started to forewarn the BSG organizations that our commitment next year through CPAP won't probably be as much. Again, our goal is to, during the tough times, stretch things out. Brian's estimation, Brian Schneider's estimation is that we probably won't see a drawdown for a couple of years. So we'll have to make it through these lean times as best we can. That's the report on that. You don't need to vote on it. It's simply for your information, but if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
If I can just add one thing, is that the organizations that receive basic support grants are always informed that they have two sources of funding. One is from the state general fund, and that's their base level of support. And then the other is their bonus, essentially from the Cultural Preservation Endowment Fund. We always stress to them that they should always budget on the general funds, that anything they get on top of that is indeed a bonus. So it's not like this is going to be a surprise. I mean, they all themselves, many of them have their own endowments, or they know from the fundraising they do from other sources that the market is having a severe effect on funds. So while it's unfortunate, this is why we do this rather complicated mathematics, because we have to anticipate the next year, set aside money so that we ensure that there is money there.
I just give huge thumbs up to everything that you all have done. This is one of the biggest dollar things we do, is this basic support grant, and the fact that we're not going to get a single dollar, it might not for 2 years, is a big deal. And so I think it's just awesome what these guys have done to stretch out what we have so that it doesn't just go off a cliff. So kudos to you all, and also on the communication piece to all of BSGs, so that they know where we're at. Like you say, Suzanne, it's not going to be a surprise to any major arts organization, but kudos for the kind of focus on this key dollar issue for us. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, then the other piece of business that we need to tackle is the NAC Development Corporation is made up, the board of directors is made up of people from this body who agree to serve on that body, as well as the NAC Finance Committee. Those are the names of the folks who have been doing it for the last year, and this council needs to re-elect them so that they can continue to serve next year. That's the slate of people. Unless anybody has any suggestions or changes, all I need is a motion to elect those people back to the board. And you'll note that Sherry and Suzanne sit on the board ex officio.
So moved.
Oh, I heard a voice.
Is that Amy?
Yes, so moved. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, second from Ellen.
Ellen?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments, discussion? Okay, Mike, roll call.
Hofstra?
Yes.
Davis?
Yeah.
Thank you. Dudley?
Yes.
Dunning?
Yeah.
Gorinsky?
Yes.
Goranson?
Yes.
Added?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Hornady?
Yes.
Laughlin?
Yes.
Dietz?
Yes.
Roush?
Yes.
Thank you. That's the financials.
Okay, and then by statute, it is my position to appoint the president of the NACDC, and that would be Alex Zirinsky.
Congratulations, Alec.
Thanks,
You're
Alex.
stuck.
I voted for
you. Yes, thank you, Alex. You've been doing a great job. Do you have anything else, Alec, that you want to say about financials?
No, we go through these pretty thoroughly. I mean, we spent 90 minutes on this last week, give or take. It's filled, well, in excess of an hour. So I know it's brief here, but we go through it with quite a bit of detail.
Yeah, the finance committee does spend a lot of time, and I know that outside of the committee meeting, that Mike also spends time with Alec, with Sarah, with different people. So very much appreciated. A lot of time goes into it. Okay, then let's move on to grant reports, 2022 grant reports. Mike, are you leading off here? It's got your name on it, doesn't it? Yeah, but I can just jump into.
Yes, please.
The staff, okay. Let's start with the artist in schools and communities. Who's doing that report? Is that the end?
No, Josh, if you want to talk about it since we didn't.
This project is Wing Arts Council.
Can you all hear him? Okay, you need to come closer to, so they can hear you and
Yeah, we only had one grant this year in our grant category. It was with the Lincoln Arts Council supporting the Pathfinder project, which takes artists into the youth correctional facility in Lincoln and does programming this year. Daniel Martinez, is that right? Is our artist for that project. Should be really great. He's going to lead the students, participants through a wide range of instruments and they'll work on the songwriting project. It should be really fun. That's all I got for you.
Thank you, Josh.
questions? All right, then the arts learning projects, I should say thank you also to the people who served on, chaired and served on, Clark and Sarah were chairs on these committees, and Amy and Michelle and Zach and myself were involved on the, and it does take time, and we really appreciate it because it's wonderful to do, even though it takes time. Because you learn a lot. And I think that that's really the bottom line. So the arts learning projects, Clark or.
Yeah, the chair usually reports
Okay.
out, Sherry.
Clark,
Yes. I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, we had 3 grants that we looked at. And man, if like Amy and Sherry won everyone I chaired, it would be like a piece of cake. But I felt really good about our discussions, and I felt really good about where the money was going. And I believe, if my memory serves me correct, that we voted to or scored them in such a way to bring all 3 of them for full board approval.
By the way, if you wanted to follow along, tab 3,
Yeah,
page
tab
3
3.
in your book.
yeah, they're all under tab 3. Okay. Arts projects, panel 1, Sarah.
Yes, we actually had 23 grantees or applicants, and Rachel did a wonderful job coordinating and guiding all of us and the committee members. We divided it up into 2 days, and Michelle, fellow board member, Michelle Dudley, also served on one of those committees, and the committee members were so well studied in reading the applications thoroughly, had great comments to make, and I think we ended up funding all grants over those 2 days. And not that they all were perfect or that they didn't have weaknesses, their strengths were wonderful too, but the committee members were excellent about going through kind of a pedagogy of what they could do to improve it next time around, which is probably the more important part of that whole process. We met virtually, and it was open to the applicants to watch or listen or both. And I don't know how many applicants actually did that, but it would have been great information for them in moving ahead. It was a great experience. It is time consuming on all the committee and Rachel on your part too. But it was a great experience. I enjoyed it. And I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add, or Michelle? I think you got it.
Rachel, do you know, I know we always ask Sam how many people dialed in.
I think we had about 5.
Okay.
Because sometimes the viewers are also staff members. But I did hear from some specific applicants that emailed in. We're very appreciative of the ability to be able to watch it via Zoom, especially when they're in rural communities. And in greater Nebraska, they're very appreciative of it. So I did hear from some of them very specifically that emailed in.
And if I can add, I know that we also received them afterwards, so it might not have shown who watched live, but I know that many people will have watched it from, afterwards, which I don't know if that would add into the numbers as such, but speaking, wearing a different hat, it was extremely helpful to have access to those comments, and I would imagine that everyone looked at them in one way or another, whether it was live or afterwards.
Yeah, I was just struck with what Sarah, and you said it so beautifully, that both panels had panelists that were just superb. Where they're not always at that level. But these two panels, just the kinds of information, and it was rich information that, well, if they pay attention, will make them really extraordinary grant writers the next time around. So if they can always read it, we always include the comments in a written form for them, but just to hear them, I think is very meaningful. So I'm glad that we had several take advantage of it.
And for this board, as a follow-up too, in your packet there under tab 3, with all of these, it shows not only the names of those who applied for a grant, but what they asked for in terms of compensation and what percentage they came in at, so what they actually got in terms of what they asked for. And it also has all of the comments, the suggestions, both pro and con, for each one, and it also has the bios of the committee, the people who served on the panel. So those are the people that Sarah and Suzanne are commenting on that did such a good job. So it's all there in your packet if you're interested in it. Then the annual series and events. Zach?
I can start. So Zach audited, and I'll ask you for your impressions, but this category is a little unique in that it's the annual series and events. These are organizations that don't do year-round programming, but they have really key series or single events that really involve the community and are important in that way. And it also is not a panel meeting. Reviewers are assigned to review these remotely. And so we had 7, and they were all eventually approved. We kind of provide a little technical assistance based on some of that feedback. And then if you just want to talk about your impressions
Sure.
in terms of the category.
Okay, perfect. Well, sorry, it's how they ran in. How were the cookies yesterday?
Good.
Okay, good. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, Stephanie was nice enough to let me help out and audit some of the stuff from London actually. But so I went through all the videos, and we talked about how a lot of these organizations do really great services, but that wasn't necessarily reflected when they were writing the grants. So that's something that Stephanie said she can work with them down the road on, like the Stir Museum in Grand Island or the Omaha Chamber Music Society. So they do like really substantial services, and there was one in South Florida.
Theater West.
Theater West.
Yeah.
Theater West. And so yeah, no, it was great. I gave somewhat substantive feedback, I'm told, but, I appreciate that. But yeah, no, it was great. They were all approved. They were a great organization. They did great services. And it's just a matter of making sure that they're able to say in the way we want as people assessing grant applications that they do the amazing things they do. So.
Terrific. Any other comments on the grant reports? Good job, Rachel, getting everything organized, and everybody else who added in on this. It's a lot of work. It's nice to have it done. And I'm sure everybody's appreciative. Okay, moving on to grant adjustment. Mike.
On the tab 3, page 50, given the environment that we've been dealing with, we haven't had as many school bus grants this year as we had in past years. Conversely, we had a number of grants come to us in our arts accessibility category. And so what we wanted to do was just move some of the funds that weren't being used because of the dearth of grants in arts in school bus to the arts accessibility grants. And that's all this is pointing out is gives you a quick outlay of the money so far and the need for it in the other category. Because you had voted to approve the grant last year, we just need your approval to add this memo to the file to allow us to move the money over to the other category.
One time. It's a one-time money move.
Well, I hope so. Yes, sir. Yeah. I should point out that since this happened, we've had a number of school bus grants come in, which has been very nice. We still need to move the money, but it's been very nice to have the grants come in finally, so.
Great. I will make that motion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Alan. All right. Vote call.
2, okay, thank you. Hofstra,
Yes.
Chief,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't want to insist on her, she's driving. Dudley,
Yes.
Dunning.
Yes.
Goranson,
Yes.
Gorinsky.
Yes, unless we need to abstain.
No,
Yes.
no, because this is the NAC grant, just changing purposes. Thank you. Added,
Yes.
Harris, Hornady,
Yes.
Laughlin,
Yes.
Pete's,
Yes.
Roush.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Perfect. And moving on to reports and discussion items. First is the chair report. We've made reference to all of the retirement celebrations that we've had for Suzanne across the state. And we started the end of August in Lincoln. And actually, if you tab 4, you'll see tab 4, page 1. There's a list of the places that we were from the end of August at the Duncan residence, which was lovely to be outside. And then we were in Grand Island at the Stern Museum, Kearney at the World Theater, Norfolk at the Norfolk Arts Center. And I should also say thank you to Michelle and Ellen who worked on those and helped sponsor them. And then we were in Scottsbluff in correlation with at the same weekend with the cultural endowment meeting. And Rita and Senator John Stinner were hosts for that. In Omaha at the Holland Center just last week with the 4 groups there that helped sponsor us. These were wonderful receptions. The thing we really, everybody was really appreciative in outer Nebraska that we made the effort to come out to them. And rather than expecting them to come into Omaha or Lincoln, and we're appreciative because they had a lot there's a lot of years and a lot of people who wanted to say thank you to Suzanne. So it was wonderful. Mike and Suzanne and I drove out together, and Mike brought along a microphone, and was having Suzanne give us an oral history of all of those early days of, well, how did this come about? Or why did this happen? And how did this person? So I don't know that we'll ever be able to find the tapes, but we've got it all. Yeah, we got it all on tape, and she shared, we learned a lot.
Oh.
Absolutely. And I think Suzanne brought up things that she hadn't thought about for a long time, years.
Sherry,
So-
do you mind if I point out, I just wanted to point out
Oh,
two
sure.
photographs here. These are all.
And you might want to say verbally what you're doing, because so the people, oh, can the people at home see?
They
you
should be able
pointing?
to see her on camera.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I want to point out this photo from Norfolk. Because what you see here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Nebraska Arts Council board members. Starting with Marilyn Mitchell, Nancy Schwertley, Sandra Schroeder, Paula Pfluger, who is Marilyn's daughter, and now Michelle Dudley. So there has been a continuous line of representation from Norfolk. So, and that is why Mike Flood is so nice to us. And I want to point this one out because this not only is current staff, but this was in Omaha at the Holland, and we have a number of former staff members that also came. So that was a real thrill for me to see so many former staff members, and it was almost like, you know, those football shots, you know, where all the football players are lined up on the bleachers. That's kind of reminds me of having all the staff members.
In the one at Kearney over on the right, Suzanne's standing outside the theater, the World Theater. I can't remember what it said exactly,
It
but
says,
it's,
welcome Suzanne Weiss.
yeah, it had her on the marquee.
Nice.
So even though she doesn't have dramatic talent that she's going to be on a show on stage, she was on the marquee for
A
that.
comedian.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was great. And obviously Suzanne was at all of them. Mike and I were at all of them. Maggie was at all of them doing a pitch for the Suzanne Weiss Arts Education Fund for the endowment. So we really had a good time. And I want to also thank the board members who have pitched into, there's the reproduction of Erin Holtz's painting that we presented to her as from the both past and current board members. And thank you to all of those board members who have pitched in for that. Any questions on the retirement celebrations? I just wish they weren't done, but.
I'm sorry that I couldn't come.
I will mention that I brought the little flyers about Suzanne's fund, and then we ran and grabbed some, so I'll pass them around too. In case anybody's
Okay.
interested.
And then my next part of my report is the executive director search. And that is, if you turn the page on tab 4 to the next page, page 2.
Did you want to go into closed session?
Not yet. I want to do this first. The timeline is that all of the submissions were received, or the deadline was December 1st. We have a search committee meeting tomorrow, at which point we will be deciding which are the top candidates that we will be interviewing with Zoom interviews, which will be held early to mid-January. And then we will decide at that point who we would want to bring in for in-person visits by the finalists late January, early February. This is all obviously dependent on getting these things done. But it is our intent to recommend to you as at the board a final candidate for the position at the March meeting for your official vote. And then the statistics are, it says there that we have 35, and I had the plus put in because obviously I turned in this report before the application deadline was done. At that point, it was 35. We are at 43. We had 43 applications from 10 states. So we got quite a few applications, and the search committee is listed there, and I cannot thank the search committee enough. It was a lot. There were a lot of applications to read through. The search committee has been terrific in the time they've given, and we'll still continue to give. So with that, I would like to have someone move, well, first of all, any questions about that in general? Otherwise, I'd like to go into executive session then to answer any other questions you might have about the search and all. Would someone like to make a motion to go into executive session? Thank you, Ellen.
Second.
Second, Sarah. We need to vote, I presume.
Okay, Hauptshire,
Yes.
Chief.
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Dudley,
Yes.
Dunning.
Yes.
Goranson,
Yes.
Gorinsky,
Yes.
Pettit,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hornady,
Yes.
Laughlin,
Yes.
Pete's,
Yes.
Roush.
Yes.
Okay, then I would ask the staff to come back when we call for you and Sam or
Yeah,
somebody.
Sam, if you will please stop the recording and put everybody where they need to be.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that in and I'll give you the heads up when.
We're stopping the live.
Stop the live stream and the recording, and the live stream meaning that the general public is not.
Howdy.
Hey, guys, are we in or out?
I think we're in.
Mike,
Can you
Mike,
hear?
I can hear you.
We can't
Oh,
hear.
they're muted. Yeah.
We can't hear you.
There we go.
Brenda, you say yes. Dunning, Dornson.
Yes.
Thank you. Gorinsky
Yes.
and Haddad,
Yes.
Harris. Hornady.
Yes.
Laughlin,
Yeah.
Pete,
Yes.
Roush.
yes.
Thank you. 3.
Okay, we're up then for executive director's report.
Okay,
Thank you, Sam.
next slide.
All right. You said.
I know, you're doing fine. Sorta. It was your idea to sit over here. There we go. All right. As you probably know, if you've looked at your council packets, you always see staff reports. And it's usually a summary of the last 3 months of work. That started a number of years ago when the legislature was, and the governor, were really concerned about the state budget. And they were doing cuts. And I think that there was a huge concern at the time that there would be agencies like ours where senators would say, well, just exactly what do they do there? I mean, all they do is give money to organizations. So I think it was at that time that we decided, you know, we really need to make a record of just exactly how much work we do. And so that's what started staff reports. And I am very confident that I can speak on behalf of the entire staff and say they're a pain in the butt to do, because you just have to sit back and go back through your calendar and get it all down. And there's always a general groan when we're talking about council book and get your, oh, staff report. Okay. And I thought to myself, hey, this is my last meeting. I'm not going to do a staff report. So instead, I'm just going to give you a little different kind of report. So I've been going through a lot of files in the past few weeks and thinking about giving my report today. And I was struck by this image, which is the original design for the Support the Arts license plates we've had in production now for 2 years. And in a way, this image represents many of the lessons I've learned about being the director of the Arts Council. When I became director in 2003, I got phone calls, many of them insistent, telling me that the Nebraska Arts Council should be lobbying for an arts license plate. At the time, the restriction on vanity plates had just been lifted, so there was a surge of interest in them. While it was clear to me that having arts license plates was a good idea, I knew that we were in a critical juncture in our relationship with the Cultural Endowment and our partner, the Nebraska Humanities Council, now Humanities Nebraska. It was a time of growing pains and smoothing over past grievances in how to best manage the Cultural Endowment's management and growth. Through a third party, I had heard that Humanities Council had concerns about vanity plates in general. They feared that too much attention would be drawn to the arts and humanities by the legislature at the time when they wanted to preserve their legislative allocation, and the future of the cultural endowment wasn't all that certain. In addition, I think there was a bit of jealousy because while it's easy to imagine what an arts design for a license plate would look like, it isn't easy to do that kind of visual with humanities. Also, Arts Council board members involved in the cultural endowment had stressed how important it was for the Arts Council to take the high road, a leadership role, in demonstrating sincere partnership with the humanities for the greater good of the cultural endowment. So just a few months into the job, I had a hard decision to make. Should I make myself popular with our arts constituents, or should I risk their disappointment in me in order to strengthen our partnership with humanities, which was critical to the success of the cultural endowment? I made the decision to set the license plate initiative aside. I think it's obvious that the big lesson I learned here is that leaders have to make tough decisions that don't always make sense on the surface, and that you have to be prepared for blowback. But this first big decision of my career as director taught me more than that. It taught me to take the time to consider all angles and seek input of others. I learned that while I did not agree with Humanities Council's assessment of the legislature, it was a valid opinion and one I should respect and pay attention to. I learned not to hold a grudge when I didn't get my way, because in the end, things have a way of working out. I learned to meet criticism head on. I communicated directly with everyone who had brought the idea to me initially and thanked them for bringing the idea forward, and without going into details, explained to them that although I was behind the idea, the timing was an issue. I'm not sure they bought that, but I think they appreciated that I reached out to them, which taught me another lesson. The motivations of individuals can vary widely, and you start developing a kind of sixth sense about what these motivations are. While most people are generous and just want to share an idea that they think is worthy of consideration, there are always a few whose motivations range from attention-getting to obsession. I learned that our job is to work with everyone, and that you learn where people are coming from, and through kindness and respect for all, you rarely run into serious confrontations or other problems. This incident was also the beginning of learning patience and long-term strategic thinking. I can't really say that I have a methodology behind how I learned to implement these two virtues, but as my career progressed, I saw that having a mental list of what we needed to accomplish and not letting setbacks in achieving them kept my eye on the prize. It goes without saying that having a staff that embraces the same vision and motivation is the most important key to success. I can be something of a control freak, and I've learned that I need to let go and give staff the tools they need to take charge. The results have been better than I could have possibly imagined in those early days. So in summary, we have a license plate. We have a solid and trustworthy working relationship with both our humanities colleagues and the cultural endowment. We've managed to keep the legislature happy. I haven't alienated our constituents, or at least I don't think I have. And I believe for the most part, I'm leaving a staff that is confident, engaged, and has the ability to move forward with a new director. So that is what I have learned. And so again, thanks to the staff, they really are the most critical component to this agency. And just a few additional thank yous. Not everyone is here, so I'm just going to single out the people that either are on the screen or here about this round of farewell parties that I have been subjected to, which I've been whining about it, but really and truly, they were so much fun, and I so appreciate it. So I'll start with Amy Haddad and her husband, Steve Martin. They were a critical component of the Lincoln Party. And a shout out to Sarah for my admiralty. That's been getting a big laugh when Sherry mentions it at other parties, and I do it salute brings the house down. Ellen, thank you so much for Grand Island. That was just a lovely event. Bill Dudley for Norfolk, and finally Sherry for Omaha, and for everything else that you have done for a long time, for the last 6 months, I would say, and kind of getting things organized and helping to push me out the door with a kind of soft landing. So I very much appreciate that. Thank you very much. And also to the rest of you for your participation in the various components that are kind of happening now as I transition out. So that's my report.
Do you think if we just ended the meeting here, she wouldn't have to leave?
So moved.
Yeah, exactly.
And Mike, being the great guy he is, he had no idea what this was going to be about, but he saw that I had the license plate up on the PowerPoint. He came in and he said, well, maybe they'd like to know how much money we've made from the license. Would anyone care to guess how much, and again, remember the license plate has only been out for 2 years, and it's only $5 extra unless you get a
But
vanity
how much
plate.
do we get?
But well, that's what I'm asking.
Oh.
How much do we get?
75,000 could be off completely.
20,000.
Why don't you go right in the middle and you've about got it. It's about $53,000.
Great.
Wow.
And we don't get all of that $5.
I was gonna say,
The department,
how much of the $5 do we?
I think it's, what is it, $2.75 and $1.25 goes for the manufacturer, because they manufacture them as they're ordered. So, but that's a nice chunk of change.
That's $4. Who's getting the extra $1? 125, 275.
It's not $5.
That's why I have not.
I think we doesn't cover the.
There's money from place to place in big chunks. I don't do the arithmetic.
There's testing somewhere under this.
Does anybody have any questions of Suzanne about anything about the agency, and since she did a little different kind of report? Any specific?
I think the biggest thing would be what's next for you.
She's gonna be an admiral in Nebraska.
I have to get my paddle and my blow up dinghy, take out to Holmes Lake. Get a little admiral's hat. Actually, I have been fielding a number of requests for, would you be interested in this? Would you be interested in that? And no, I'm not interested in having another full-time job. I'm not necessarily thinking yet about a part-time or doing consulting work or anything like that until I've had a few months to kind of see just where I land. I've been working since I was 14. So put myself through college, pretty much worked the entire time. I had a small child at home. And so the idea of not working is just something very alien to me. And I really don't know how I'm going to assess that until it happens. But I've told people, you know, give me a few months and then you can give me a call and we'll see. Because obviously the arts are a very important part of my life, but so are things like the environment and social justice. And so we'll just have to see where this all lands. So I just have a feeling I'll want to do some things. But right now I just need to chill for a while. So well earned.
Yes. So she's not going away too far. So that's good.
Yeah, I know. People say, well, are you going to move? Where am I going to move to? Florida? Nice house in Lincoln, lots of things. Omaha's boot. I mean, it's just a lot of things to do here. You're in the middle. You can go to either coast or all over the place. It's a great place to live, Nebraska. Okay.
Okay.
We've got
program reports. I don't know who's up first.
Rachel's up.
My thing just says program report staff, so,
I just wait for the slides to come up.
oh, okay.
I'm gonna move up here so the microphone catches me. Sounds like it's hard to share back there. So I just wanted to give a quick update on creative districts. This actually changed this morning. So, we got a new LOI from Hastings. Their downtown area is wanting to go through the process of being a creative district. And just so you're aware, COZAD, which is the Haymaker Creative District, their strategic plan is out for review. I had a panelist who got really sick last week, so she couldn't finish her review. I don't foresee there being an issue. I think they are going to be our 6th district that is certified, which means we will have 6 officially certified. And which means they have their strategic plan in, it is approved, and they all have $10,000 to start doing good things. Brownville is the only one that has their development grant in, but I know others are working on theirs because I've been answering a lot of questions and doing pre-review of things. So we are just kind of trucking right along. We had our first cohort meeting. And we have our second one in January. Our first one, we talked about public art, and Megan presented, which was incredibly helpful. We actually recorded her presentation, and I've been sharing it with other communities that are talking about public art. So it was a nice way to look at it from kind of beginning to end, what kinds of things you need to think about. And this next one, we're going to talk about different resources. So there are some different type of virtual mapping resources that they can use for tourism. And there's a lot of resources out there. So we're going to have some people present on that. And it's also a way for the districts to share with each other. So one of the things we're going to talk about is, what projects are you working on? And so give us an update on that. So it's a great way for them to connect. The other exciting thing, which is not on the screen, yesterday we did a webinar with 3 different states, Idaho, Washington, and Nebraska. Idaho is starting their creative district program. And so during their planning phase, they reached out to Washington and to us. The 3 of us got along so well together and went, this is amazing, that we decided to do a webinar. And it was centered around creative districts, how you start one. And it was really centered on creative districts in rural communities. A lot of times communities think, oh, that's only something for like Seattle or Lincoln or Omaha. How do I make that happen in a small community? And so we really focused on rural communities, and we actually had Ashland and Brownville be a part of a panel discussion. And so talking about how they made this happen and just the very basic things, like the steps that it took to get their community on board, how they explained what a creative district was, those type of things. We had a great turnout. We had over 200 registrants for the webinar, and a lot of interest in doing some further ones. So I think it's a partnership that will probably keep going.
How many states?
39.
Wow.
It was a lot. It was coast to coast. We had a little interactive map at the beginning where they could pinpoint where they were. So it was really fun to see the attendees from all across the country, which was really, really great. So very exciting to see those partnerships with other states happening and how our districts can learn not just from each other in the state, but from other states as well. And the similarities and the so, are there any questions?
Without sounding too biased, I think it was about as slickly done and informative a webinar that I've seen.
I thought it went really well. We took it from a macro to a micro point of view. So research that Boise State had done on creative districts. We kind of started with that, funneled it down to how our states run our districts, down to the creative districts themselves, and heard from them. So you got to see it from a lot of different perspectives.
I think one of the keys that no one will ever know about is every of the 3 states they all selected representatives of either cultural districts and Rachel selected Brownville and Ashland, and Ashland, the representative, he's the economic development.
Yeah.
But the guy from Brownville tends to be a little chatty, and when she mentioned that, I thought. But you worked with him and you made it clear to him that it had to be concise and that he had to, work within a time frame, and gave him the questions so he could anticipate. So really, that really takes extra effort to make sure that you've got people prepped to do that. And actually, I thought his presentation was in some ways one of the most effective, because he talked about Senator Julie Slama, who is like this way with things like cultural districts. They invited her to Brownville. They convinced her that it was a good idea, and he was able to tell that story. So I thought because of course I'm scrolling through to see people paying attention to this, and they were, at least people that were showing themselves, they were really listening. So bravo, very good.
Well, and I think the fact that if you look at all of those, that it's very much more of a high percentage of rural areas. They really see, and that's so exciting, that they're seeing the economic development part of it and the tourist development part of it as something, and I'm really thrilled that it's not all Omaha and Lincoln.
I love seeing more stars as meetings go piece by piece.
Yep.
Like Historic Creative Districts isn't like a tale of two cities. So that's great.
Yeah.
Rural communities, they know how to work together. And so community engagement and community input, they do it really well. They know how to do it because they have to. They're a small community, they have to all work together. So it fits them well.
Thank you, Rachel.
Great.
Okay, I forgot now who's next. We did rehearse this.
Looks like
That's me.
Megan.
Okay. My name's Megan for everyone who's new or haven't met yet. So I run the 1% for Art program, and I also run the Fred Simon Gallery in the Governor's Residence. But today I just want to talk a little bit about the Fred Simon Gallery, which preface this by, we have an event after this board meeting that will be in the Fred Simon Gallery. So the artist that's in there right now, her name is Gabriela Quiros, and she's based up at the Hot Shots in Omaha. And we all love her exhibition, so I'm really glad that we'll all get to see it. She was originally scheduled for the 2020 season, and we all know how that went. And so we're just now getting off of all of our exhibitions that we had to reschedule based on the pandemic. So we still have this exhibition, Nancy Lepo and Joe Addison. And then we were out of exhibition. So we reopened the call this summer so that we could get more artists to apply. And just a little bit of a note about what happens when artists apply. We only ask for Nebraska artists to apply, and we typically get exhibiting artists from across the state. And as you can see here, this is our exhibition calendar for 2023 to 2025, and we have artists from across the state. So we're really excited about that. And then just a couple other fascinating details about the Fred Simon Gallery. We don't ask for any payment of any kind from the artist to exhibit here. It's kind of our treat to the arts community in Nebraska that we get to have a space for them to exhibit and show off what they're doing. And then we also don't take any commission either. So these artists, if they make any sales, they get to manage, of course, all of the sales, and but then we don't ask for any of that funding either. So that's a really nice benefit. And they do sell. So every one of them, I say, you should probably put a price sheet in there, and a lot of them are really excited when their pieces will sell. So back to the 2023 to 2025 schedule. We have people from all across the state. There are emerging artists and artists that have been working in the field as a professional artist for many, many years. There are art faculty people and folk artists. One of the exciting things that I think Stephanie will probably talk about, or if she hasn't already, is you'll see on here, we have a folk art exhibition. One of the things that we're kind of amping up is the folk art program, which Stephanie is running. And so we are really excited to have a featured exhibition with folk artists, and that will be curated. I don't want to go into the details, but we made sure to save the spot there, and we're looking at doing that as a every 2 years exhibition. So at the end of this schedule, at the end of 2025, we'll plug that one right back in there and continue that effort to feature folk artists who also live and work in Nebraska. I know there are quite a few names on here, but if you're ever in Omaha and if I want to go see an exhibition, please do just stop on down. We'd be happy to have you and to share with you what's going on in the gallery. Yes, and this is on our website too, so it's on the Fred Simon Gallery page.
Oh, no. My recommendations are missing. That's okay. That's okay. So as Megan mentioned, we have a folk arts exhibition scheduled for the fall of 2023. It's pretty exciting. We have asked Talisa Rodriguez, who was formerly at Mona, to work with us in curating that exhibit. And she's I would say, a real talent when it comes to nosing out really talented artists that speak to really broad themes that have to do with Nebraska. So I did want to mention that, but what I wanted to talk with you all about today is the Folk and Traditional Arts report that was prepared and researched by community leader Ellen Struve. So in our last board meeting, I mentioned the progress that she had with that, but the report wasn't finalized. And at this point it is, and it's available on the Folk and Traditional Arts webpage on our website. And so you can take a look at it. It's only about 9 pages, so it's extremely digestible if you'd like to take a look at it. And so the findings were very interesting because the focus was really on sort of new American and immigrant communities. And part of the focus was how do we reach out to those communities and let them know that we are here to support them and their arts endeavors. And so she found out some really interesting information in that, but I wanted to highlight a couple of those. So one is that social media is a really important tool for not just these artists, but these communities. And so what she found is things like folkloric dance groups or people who create puppets, they find each other through that social media, through things like Facebook groups. And they also organize things like rehearsals and communicate different opportunities. And so that was an important finding. And then one of her other findings is of the artists and organizations she reached out to, and there was a list of about 80 that she finalized the report with. Only 10% of the artists and organizations contacted had sought grant funding. And there's some interesting reasons for that she goes into. And some of that has to do with past experiences with other public entities, not just American, but in other countries. And so there's some nice details in there that really help give us a broader perspective on what we can do better. And so some of her recommendations, the primary one, I think, is about social media. It's about how can we sort of leverage our social media prominence and our following to really kind of elevate some of these organizations who are really important in these immigrant communities, but may not have a big sort of public footprint. And so there's some nice ideas in there about highlighting them on social media and making sure that people know about them. And then one of the other recommendations is to humanize the Arts Council. And you all know us and know that we're human. But so often in folk and traditional arts, this is such a personal, informal relationship. And so one of Ellen's recommendations is that we really put ourselves as people out there and let these folks know that we're here to listen to them, to help support them in what ways we can. And so that's my report to you on this. So, yeah. And I'll just finish, actually, I'll walk this way and finish by saying that Ellen's going to continue on this research and expand into some different counties in the coming year. So I'm really looking forward to what else she finds out there. So.
And we pay for Ellen's and Lisa's services through a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts that is specific to folk and traditional arts.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I think that's it.
Yep.
Thank you for the reports. Really exciting stuff, really. All right, any other business? All right, hearing none, do I have a vote for adjournment? Zach? Second, Ellen? Mark?
Offshire,
Yes?
Cheek,
Yes.
Davis. Well,
She's off.
Gunning,
Yes.
Gordonson,
Yes.
Rinsky,
Yes.
Addis,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hornady,
Yes.
Laughlin.
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Roush.
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you all to those who are on Zoom, and you're all welcome who are here into the other room. Give us a minute to get the trays out, but we have a reception, got some bubbly that we can toast Suzanne with. Thank you so much for a good meeting.
Yeah.